The courtroom air was heavy with silence, as the judge's gavel struck like thunder, echoing in Maya Cole's bones. She gripped the wooden bench, her breath sharp, her chest rising with the weight of disbelief. The man she had feared for years was walking free, and the verdict tasted like ash. Cameras flashed as reporters lunged forward, but Maya saw only the tremor in her hands. She whispered to herself, "It can't end like this." Daniel Price touched her shoulder, calm and warm, promising quietly, "I'll walk you out." She nodded, though her eyes refused to leave the criminal's smirk. The walls felt too close, the air suffocating, and Owen Hale appeared at her side, guiding her through the chaos. Outside, the night pressed in with damp fog, streetlights flickering like tired witnesses. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and when she answered, a boy's voice cut through the noise. "They lied about Lily," Jax Rivera said, urgency bleeding through his words. Her heart froze. She gasped, "Who are you?" He answered with fire, "Someone who knows the truth you were never meant to see." The call ended, leaving Maya standing beneath the courthouse steps, her soul unraveling in the storm. Outside the courthouse, reporters still swarmed, but Maya barely heard them. The cold cut through her suit as Daniel Price guided her down the steps with a calm hand. He whispered gently, "You need to breathe," but Maya felt her lungs locked tight. The world had betrayed her, and the man who should have been punished was gone. Owen Hale stood firm, shielding her from the crowd, his eyes flicking toward each possible exit. She thought, even he doesn't trust this moment. Daniel murmured again, "You're not alone," but his words slid across her like fragile glass. Her phone still shook in her palm, Jax's words echoing louder than the crowd. They lied about Lily. The fog pressed closer, each light hollowing like memory's edge. A weight filled her chest that wasn't just grief but suspicion. She whispered to herself, "Why now? Why him?" But nobody answered. The media's noise faded into a dull hum as Owen ushered Maya through a narrow alley beside the courthouse. He moved with quiet authority, his hand steady, but his gaze calculating. "This way is clear," he said, as if he had scouted it hours earlier. Daniel followed close, his expression soft but unreadable, every step angled toward her, not the path. Maya's heels clicked against wet pavement, each sound like a heartbeat. She whispered, "I can't keep running," but her voice was swallowed by fog. Owen glanced back, answering with a low tone, "You're not running, you're surviving." The word clung like a curse. She tightened her grip on the phone, thinking of Jax's voice, of Lily's name spoken aloud by a stranger. A cold realization crept in. Even her protectors carried secrets. The shadows of the alley bent around them, heavy with unspoken truths. Maya sat in her apartment, lights dimmed, blinds closed tight as if the world outside might break in. She held the sealed letter, its envelope worn, Lily's handwriting delicate yet firm. For years she had resisted opening it, the ink carrying too much weight. Daniel leaned against her counter, voice soft. "Sometimes the hardest truths set you free." She turned the letter over in her hand, whispering, "And sometimes they break what's left." He stepped closer, reaching as if to take it, but she drew it back quickly, shaking her head. Silence pressed thick between them. She placed the letter back into its box, sliding it under stacks of unopened bills. Her eyes glistened, but no tears fell. The apartment felt like a tomb, clutter neat but lifeless, shadows stretching along the walls, like memories refusing to fade. Far away, Evelyn Sloan watched courthouse footage on a wide monitor, her pristine office immaculate, not a paper out of place. Late 40s, elegant, dressed in a tailored black suit, she moved with deliberate calm. She paused the footage at Maya's face, eyes narrowing slightly, lips pressing into a knowing smile. A folder lay on her desk, marked confidential, containing reports already stamped and signed. Without hesitation, she deleted the video feed from her system, her finger steady. She whispered into the silence, "Every truth has its leash." The words lingered like perfume in the sterile air. Evelyn rose, straightened a stack of papers, and adjusted the blinds, her shadow cutting across the room with precise lines. The night outside glowed with city lights, but inside, nothing moved without her permission. The morning haze clung to the memorial park where names of the dead were etched into black stone. Maya Cole traced Lily's name with trembling fingers, her breath leaving shallow clouds in the cool air. The stone felt cold against her hand, yet warmer than the courtroom had ever been. Daniel Price appeared with 2 coffees, his presence steady as always, though Maya's cup would sit untouched. "She's still with you," he murmured softly, placing the cup on the stone ledge. Maya whispered, "She's still gone." Daniel's eyes softened, but a flicker crossed his face, gone as quickly as it came. The fog lifted slightly, catching the golden morning light, but inside her the shadows grew longer. She thought of Jax's voice, of the words that had shattered her already fractured night. A single question burned silently. Why now? Daniel rested his hand against her arm with warmth that felt like fire to ice, and she pulled away, unwilling to let comfort erase suspicion. Maya crossed a footbridge spanning the river, its railings slick with mist, when Jax Rivera appeared suddenly. 16, restless energy, sharp eyes beneath a hood. His voice carried urgency. "They lied about Lily," he repeated, thrusting a small flash drive into her hand. Maya froze, her grip tightening around the metal. "Why should I believe you?" she asked, suspicion cutting through her fear. Jax's glare sharpened, his words rapid fire. "Because I saw her. Weeks after the night you lost her. She wasn't gone, she ran." The bridge swayed gently beneath them, as if echoing the tremor in her chest. She whispered, "You don't know what that means." His lips twisted, half a smirk, half defiance. "I know it means you were never told the whole story." The river below roared, drowning the silence that followed, as Maya's hand closed over the drive, like a lifeline or a curse. In a quiet diner booth, Owen Hale leaned across the table, his steady frame blocking the light from the neon sign outside. "Kids make things up when they're scared," he said, voice low but firm. Maya's eyes narrowed, her hand resting near the flash drive. "Or maybe they see what others refuse to," she replied. Owen's jaw clenched, the corner of his mouth twitching before he masked it with calm. "I've checked this before. Jax has ties, but his stories never line up. You can't let hope blind you." Daniel stirred his coffee beside them, silent but observant, his presence almost too quiet. The hum of the diner filled the silence, forks clinking, murmured conversations blending into static. Maya leaned forward, whispering, "If he's lying, why does it feel like the truth?" Owen didn't answer, but his eyes flicked to the exits, scanning each path as if danger might arrive with the next open door. Back in her apartment, Maya sat at her kitchen table, the sealed letter resting between them like a third presence. Daniel leaned closer, his eyes carrying empathy laced with quiet insistence. "You've carried this weight for years. Maybe it's time to open it." Maya's hands trembled as she touched the envelope, the familiar handwriting stabbing deeper than any wound. "And if it says something I can't bear," she whispered. Daniel's voice lowered, calm as silk. "Truth doesn't vanish by avoiding it." She looked up sharply, her suspicion stirring. "Or maybe you want me to see what breaks me faster." The silence that followed pressed like stone walls, his expression unreadable in the dim glow of the lamp. She tucked the letter away again, her chest rising and falling with heavy restraint. Daniel's sigh lingered in the air, but he said nothing more, his hand retreating slowly to his side. Inside a polished chamber lined with bookshelves, Evelyn Sloane sat poised across from a judge. Late 40s, flawless black suit, her presence commanded silence. She slid a folder across the desk, her manicured fingers deliberate. "A minor request," she said softly, eyes unwavering. The judge hesitated before glancing at the contents, his expression hardening. Evelyn's gaze never broke, a predator waiting for the moment her prey gave in. "We both know the system runs on favors," she murmured, tone velvet smooth. The silence thickened until the judge nodded reluctantly, closing the file. Evelyn smiled, elegant and unhurried, as she withdrew another document, ensuring her influence remained unseen. "Consider it an adjustment," she whispered. The air in the room carried weight, the kind of power that bent rules into submission. As she rose, her suit remained immaculate, her steps precise, the faint trace of satisfaction written across her calm face. Night wrapped the apartment in a hush, as the laptop screen glowed against Maya Cole's face. She clicked through the flash drive and saw Lily walking past a corner deli. The timestamp was weeks after the disaster. Her heartbeat stumbled and then raced. Daniel Price said, "Metadata can lie," but his voice lacked conviction. Maya zoomed in and traced a scar on Lily's wrist she knew by heart. "Scars don't," she said, steady but shaking inside. Jax Rivera leaned over the table, restless energy pulsing. "I told you," he said. She ran because someone pushed her. Owen Hale stood back in the dark eyes, flicking to the door as if danger lived there. Maya compared city camera logs and the official timeline. The mismatch screamed at her in hard numbers. Daniel whispered, "Careful, Maya," and she felt the warning as a weight. She saved the files twice, and then again, like a ritual against loss. The room smelled of cold coffee and fear. Maya reached into her old go bag and felt tape catch her fingers. She peeled it back and a small locker key slid into her palm. Jax Rivera whistled low and said, "Hidden in the music box too. Same tape." The memory hit like a flare in fog. Maya turned the key over and saw the etched number, small and precise. Owen Hale said, "Evidence lockers change codes often." But his tone admitted the clue had teeth. Daniel Price stepped closer, soft voice measured. "Let me run the number quietly." Maya pulled the key away and shook her head. "No more quiet," she said, and the resolve steadied her spine. Jack sketched the number into his notebook, lines fast and sure. "I can map the route," he said, eyes bright with defiance. The room felt smaller, as if the walls listened. Maya pocketed the key, and the metal felt like a pulse. The next move would draw blood somewhere. The records office hummed with fluorescent fatigue and old paper. Owen Hale flashed a worn badge to an old contact who frowned and waved them in. 5 minutes, the man said, already nervous. Maya handed over the locker number. The screen returned an audit log with black bars like wounds. Jax Rivera muttered, "They redacted the truth." Daniel Price said, "There's still a chain," and pointed to a transfer date that matched Lily's sighting. Maya felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. "Who moved it, and why?" she said, voice flat as steel. The contact shook his head. "The list was cleaned last month," he said, not meeting her eyes. Owen said, "By whose order?" and the reply was a shrug that felt like a door slamming. Maya snapped a photo of the screen before anyone could stop her. The fluorescent light buzzed harder, as if it knew secrets. They returned to find Maya's apartment unlocked. Photographs lay face down on the floor like fallen witnesses. Daniel Price moved first and said, "Stay behind me," voice low but urgent. Maya stepped around the frames, hearing glass tick in tiny sounds. Her throat tightened as she saw her favorite picture, Lily laughing and Son, turned to the wood. Jax Rivera said, "They wanted you to feel watched," and his youth sounded old. Owen Hale checked the windows and cursed under his breath. "No prints, no camera, efficient," he said, and the word cut. Maya righted one frame and stared at her own reflection. "Not a theft," she said. "A lesson." Daniel put a hand near her arm and stopped short, unsure of permission. "We reset your locks tonight," he said, and the promise felt thin. The room smelled of cold air and the memory of hands that did not belong here. Across the city, fog rolled over the docks like a slow tide of secrecy. Evelyn Sloan stood inside a private control room that smelled of bleach and money. She watched monitors loop a perfect night that never happened. "Sanitize the hours around the transfer," she said, each word precise. An aide nodded and dragged a slider, erasing people into clean emptiness. Evelyn's gaze did not blink. She paused the feed on a silhouette near a warehouse. The outline could be anyone, which was exactly the point. "Destroy the burner," she added, and the aide obeyed without a word. She adjusted her cuff and breathed in the pristine order she demanded. "Truth is clutter," she said, and smiled without warmth. Outside, a gull cried, and the sound reached no human heart. The river reflected nothing but lights that lied. The city turned away like a trained witness. Wah! The locker creaked open, metal groaning in protest, as if secrets resisted release. Inside, a velvet-lined pen rested, silver worn smooth by use. Maya Cole lifted it carefully, her breath shallow, recognizing Lily's favorite pen. She twisted the barrel, and a tiny shard of data slid free, its surface etched with Evelyn Sloane's authorization signature. Jax Rivera leaned forward, voice rising. "That's your proof." Daniel Price swallowed hard, his tone steady, but eyes betraying tension. "Metadata can be forged," he said quickly. Maya glared, the shard gleaming like truth in her hand. "Not her handwriting," she replied, steady but hollow. Owen Hale crossed his arms, posture tight, scanning the shadows as if enemies might materialize. "This puts you in the crosshairs," he said, voice clipped. Maya whispered, "Then let them aim." The locker slammed shut, and the echo carried like judgment in the stale air. Later, in a dim cafe corner, Jax Rivera scribbled frantically in his notebook, mapping routes and faces. His hand smudged graphite lines, restless energy spilling onto paper. "I used to run errands for Evelyn," he admitted, not meeting Maya's eyes. Maya leaned in, voice low but sharp. "Errands?" Jax nodded quickly. "Paperwork, deliveries. I memorized faces, doors, who went where." Daniel Price frowned, his voice weighted with caution. "Why admit this now?" Jax snapped his head up, glare sharp. "Because you need it now." Owen Hale exhaled slowly, rubbing his temple, his gaze sharp but unreadable. "If this is true, you've just painted a target on yourself." Jax's smirk was thin and defiant. "Too late for that." Maya studied his sketches, lines, arrows, names scribbled fast, and felt the ground beneath her shift. The boy's truth wasn't clean, but it was dangerous enough to matter. At police archives, Maya froze at a record Owen Hale hadn't wanted her to see. His signature mocked a temporary relocation order, the week Lily disappeared. The page shook in her hands. "You signed this," she said, voice breaking with steel. Owen's jaw tightened, words slow. "For the greater good," he said, each word tasting of ash. Jax Rivera hissed. "Greater good, you buried her." Daniel Price shifted uneasily, hands clasped, his voice soft. "Owen's loyalty has always been complicated." Maya's face hardened, eyes wet but furious. "You had one job, protect." Owen looked away, his silence louder than lies. The fluorescent hum filled the room, cold and merciless. Jax whispered, "He chose then, he'll choose again." Owen met Maya's stare finally, his voice low, almost begging. "I thought it would save you." Her reply landed like a blade. It killed her. In Maya's apartment, Daniel Price laid receipts across the table, his hands steady but eyes flickering with unease. Maya leaned over, scanning lines that showed private dinners with Evelyn Sloane. Her voice cracked sharp. "Consulting," she demanded. Daniel raised his palms. "I went to plead your case," he said, tone heavy with sincerity. Jax Rivera scoffed. "Looks like you dined well while she buried evidence." Daniel's jaw clenched, eyes wet with restrained frustration. "I wanted to keep you safe," he insisted, voice trembling. Maya's voice fell to a whisper. "Or you wanted something else." Silence thickened, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator. Owen Hale stood in the corner, watching with expression unreadable. Maya shoved the receipts back across the table, her hands shaking. "Everyone I trust is already compromised," she said. Daniel's shoulders slumped, and the truth hung like a shadow neither could step out of. At last Maya unfolded the sealed letter, paper trembling as if alive. Lily's handwriting curved across the page, each stroke familiar, intimate. The words burned her, If Owen brings this to you, don't trust him. If he doesn't, he already chose. Maya's breath hitched, the room spinning. Owen Hale's eyes widened as he realized the letter was no longer secret. Jax Rivera muttered. She warned you, his tone almost reverent. Daniel Price leaned forward, voice low. Maya, this doesn't erase everything he's done. Owen stepped closer, hands out, voice breaking. I thought hiding it would protect you from breaking. Maya's tears finally slipped, but her voice carried fire. You broke me anyway. The letter fell from her hands onto the table, fluttering like a final verdict. Silence drowned them, heavy with betrayal. Outside, sirens wailed faintly, a cruel harmony to the truth unraveling inside. The storm inside Maya's chest broke loose as she faced Owen Hale in the dim hallway of her apartment building. The letter's words echoed like knives, her voice sharp. You chose for me. Owen's jaw clenched, eyes burning with regret. I stalled evidence to keep you alive, he confessed, voice heavy. If Evelyn saw your name attached, she would have ended you. Maya's fists shook as she whispered, You killed Lily by saving me. Jax Rivera, pressed against the wall, muttered, Hell, do it again? Daniel Price stood silent, torn between compassion and suspicion, his eyes scanning both of them. Owen's voice cracked, I'd make the same choice again. Maya's tears streaked as she shook her head, whispering, Then you never chose me at all. The hallway light flickered above, buzzing like a lie that refused to die. Their truths collided in silence, heavier than screams. Fog choked the docks as Jax Rivera sprinted ahead, leading Maya and Owen into the shadows. He ducked behind containers, eyes wide, breath sharp. A figure approached, Evelyn's fixer, tall and faceless in the mist. Jax hurled a rock, the clang echoing like gunfire. The fixer spun, giving chase. Maya's chest pounded as she shouted, Jax, stop! But he darted toward the edge of the pier. Owen roared, Stay back! As he blocked Maya with one arm. Jax tripped the fixer, who fell hard, phone skittering across the wet planks. Jax scooped it up, breathless, yelling. He was carrying their vault key. The fog swallowed his defiant grin as the fixer scrambled to his feet. Maya froze, phone glowing in Jax's hand like a forbidden flame. In that moment she realized, the boy had just stolen more than evidence. He had stolen their chance to hide. Inside a private restaurant cloaked in velvet shadows, Daniel Price sat across from Evelyn Sloan. Candles flickered, throwing her features into elegant sharpness. You played both sides, Evelyn said, voice smooth. Daniel's jaw tightened. I begged for Maya's case, he insisted. Evelyn's lips curved in a cold smile. And yet you dined well. She leaned closer, eyes unblinking. You already work for me. Daniel's breath hitched, guilt and fury colliding. I wanted to protect her, he whispered, fists clenched against linen. Evelyn brushed invisible dust from the table, calm and commanding. Protection is just another word for obedience. Silence thickened between them, broken only by clinking glasses in the distance. Daniel's gaze dropped, torn between loyalty and shame, realizing Evelyn had woven him into her game long before he knew. The vault door groaned as Maya and Jax forced it open, metal shrieking against silence. Inside, shelves of drives glimmered like frozen confessions. Maya's breath caught as she connected the phone. Screens blooming alive. Footage spilled across monitors. Lily alive, standing in a warehouse, whispering into camera. They stole from the disaster funds. Jax whispered. She knew. Maya's knees weakened, but she steadied, whispering. She fought for truth. Owen entered, eyes shadowed with dread, voice rough. This is why I hid it. Maya snapped. You hid her. The footage looped, Lily's defiance undeniable. Daniel's voice lingered in Maya's head, but she shoved doubt aside. The vault thrummed with power, every hum of machinery pressing the weight of lives lost. The glass wall separated Maya from Evelyn Sloan, who stepped into the vault's observation room with poise. Evelyn's reflection shimmered, commanding, untouchable. Maya played Lily's final recording through the intercom, voice breaking yet unyielding. Lily's words filled the chamber. Truth without trust is a blade. Evelyn's smile never cracked, but her eyes flickered at the wound of memory resurfaced. Jax Rivera whispered, "She hears it now." Owen stood rigid, silent, his face fractured with guilt. Evelyn tilted her head, serene. And blades cut both ways. Maya's tears streamed as she pressed her palm to the glass. "This ends with you," she said. The vault's hum grew louder, oppressive, as the weight of betrayal and truth balanced on the razor edge of what would come next. Morning light spilled across the courthouse steps, reporters swarming like vultures. Maya Cole stood silent, as vault footage played on giant outdoor screens. Lily's voice thundered through the city. "They stole from the disaster funds." The crowd gasped, anger swelling like a tide. Evelyn Sloane's name echoed across headlines, her grip fractured, but not broken. She was charged, but one dismissal cut like betrayal. Maya's stomach twisted as a lawyer announced, "Not all evidence is admissible." Jax Rivera hissed under his breath, "They're already twisting it." Cameras flashed, demanding Maya's face, but she kept her eyes on Lily's image frozen in defiance. Owen Hale whispered at her side, "At least part of the truth is out." Maya's reply was sharp, "Half-truths don't save the dead." The crowd roared again, chanting for justice, but Maya only heard her sister's voice reverberating against hollow walls. In a sterile office, Owen Hale slid a thick folder across a table to federal agents. His voice was low but steady. "Everything I once hid, every order, every chain, it's all here." The agents leaned in, scribbling notes, their pens scratching like judgment. Maya Cole stood against the wall, arms crossed, her eyes unblinking. Owen glanced at her, guilt etched into his features. "I'm done protecting her lies," he added, voice carrying a tremor beneath steel. One agent asked, "Why now?" Owen's silence lasted too long before he muttered, "Because I already lost too much." Maya's expression did not soften, her gaze a verdict sharper than law. As the folder opened, redacted lines revealed the machinery Evelyn had built. Owen exhaled heavily, the sound of a man surrendering what was left of his shield. The room smelled of ink, paper, and old betrayal. Under flashing cameras, Daniel Price faced a crowd, microphones thrust at his chest. His voice was measured but heavy with guilt. "I betrayed her trust. I betrayed all of you. But I will not hide again." His eyes searched for Maya Cole in the distance, but she did not step forward. Instead, she turned away, her silence speaking louder than his confession. Daniel's hand shook slightly as he pulled a phone from his pocket. On screen, Evelyn's final message blinked unread. He hovered, then pressed delete, thumb steady as if cutting a thread. Reporters shouted questions, but he lowered the phone, his face breaking with something raw and human. "This isn't forgiveness," he murmured to himself, "but it's a start." Behind him, the courthouse banners flapped in the wind, symbols of justice that felt both fragile and false. Inside a courtroom, Jax Rivera sat at the witness stand, his hoodie traded for a simple shirt. His hands shook, but his voice held. "I saw her. I saw Lily alive. And I saw what they did to bury her truth." The jury leaned forward, captivated. Maya Cole watched from the gallery, eyes burning with pride and sorrow. Jax fumbled with a sketchbook, flipping it open. The pages revealed Lily's face drawn again and again, in alleys by rivers, in fragments of memory. His voice cracked. "I drew her because I was afraid I'd forget." Silence pressed heavy before the judge cleared his throat. Jax raised his chin, defiance sparking through fear. Maya whispered under her breath, "You're not alone anymore." The courtroom air held a strange reverence, as if Lily herself had stepped into the room through his trembling sketches. At the disaster memorial, Maya Cole stood alone, the sealed letter now open and folded in her hands. Her voice trembled as she read Lily's words aloud, the air carrying them like prayer. If Owen brings this to you, don't trust him. If he doesn't, he already chose. Her voice cracked but steadied. But I will carry you forward, not back. Wind swept across the stone wall, names glowing in golden dusk. She pressed her palm to Lily's etched name, tears falling freely now. Daniel Price's apology echoed faintly in her memory. Owen Hale's silence lingered, but she let it go like ash in the wind. Jax Rivera's sketches burned in her mind, proof that Lily lived in more than grief. Maya whispered one final promise. Your fight is mine now. The sunset bled across the sky, painting the memorial in fire and memory. In the gray morning, Evelyn Sloane stepped from the armored van into the processing bay. Cameras were forbidden, but the guard's eyes recorded every movement. Her black suit was immaculate, her posture regal even in chains. She paused as the officer read her charges. Silence held as if waiting for her to break. Instead, she tilted her chin and whispered with unnerving calm, "Memories can be corrected." The officer faltered, pen hesitating mid-mark. Maya Cole watched through the observation window, heart pounding. Jax Rivera stood beside her muttering, "She still thinks she's in control." Evelyn's eyes never wavered, staring directly toward the glass, as if she could see through the reflection. Maya whispered, "Control doesn't erase truth." Yet Evelyn's half-smile lingered, a shadow of power refusing to die, echoing louder than any gavel. That evening, Maya sat in a quiet evidence room, her desk lamp the only pool of light. The vault phone and Lily's letter lay inside a sealed evidence bag. She slid the bag closed, pressing the tape firmly, but hesitated. Her hand darted back and she slipped Lily's silver pen into her pocket, keeping the one piece that felt alive. Her reflection stared back from the glass of the evidence cabinet, eyes weary but unbroken. Daniel Price's words haunted her. "Truth doesn't vanish by avoiding it," she whispered. "Neither does betrayal." The hum of the room was the hum of judgment, steady and final. She leaned back in her chair, the evidence sealed, yet the weight of it pressing against her chest. The pen burned like a secret she wasn't ready to release. In the quiet hallway of Maya's building, Daniel Price arrived with a ring of keys. He placed them gently on the table by her door, each one clinking like history breaking apart. Maya stood silent, her face unreadable. Daniel's eyes searched for forgiveness but found only distance. "No locks left for me to open," he murmured, voice thick. His hand hovered as if to touch her arm, but he withdrew, shoulders sagging. Maya's voice was calm but final. "Keys don't build trust." Daniel nodded slowly, lips pressed tight, then turned and walked down the corridor, every step echoing like an ending. The hallway light flickered once, then steadied, leaving only the sound of retreat. Maya stared at the keys, her chest heavy, knowing some bonds could not be reforged. At a detention, center visitation room, Owen Hale sat alone in the corner seat he always chose. His hands clasped tightly, head bowed, lips moving in silence. One by one, he whispered the names of people he had failed, the sound low and breaking. The guard watched without interest, tapping a pen against the table. Owen's eyes finally lifted to the glass, his reflection fractured by scratches. He whispered, "I thought sacrifice was strength. But sacrifice without truth is cowardice." His shoulders sagged, the weight of years finally settling. Outside the glass, no one waited. The chair across from him stayed empty, echoing louder than voices. He closed his eyes, repeating names like penance, his voice fading into the hum of fluorescent light above. Night returned heavy and still. Maya Cole stood on her balcony, phone in hand, staring at a voicemail timestamped that very day. Her thumb hovered, then she pressed play. Lily's voice filled the silence, humming the familiar tune she once tapped out with pens. Maya's breath caught, her body rigid, tears spilling. "This can't be," she whispered into the dark. The city sprawled below, lights glowing indifferent to her unraveling. Jax Rivera's words echoed in her head. They lied about Lily. Her whisper grew louder. "If she's alive." The voicemail ended abruptly, leaving an ache more haunting than silence. Maya pressed the phone to her chest and whispered, "Trust is the story we tell. Until it tells on us." The night wind carried her words into the abyss.